Butch, we're just going to talk a little bit about your blades and what got you into knife making.
Oh, Shannon buying me one of Ed Fowler's knives about 20 years ago.
Right.
And then him bugging me for years to learn to make knives.
So you finally took the plunge, and so you still got the first knife you ever made or not?
Yeah, still have the first and the second one that I've ever made.
Right.
So,
Now, somebody told me that you carry those knives with you, one of your knives all the time.
I always have one on, yeah.
Okay. And you use it? You're a contractor by trade then?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're used to building good things?
Try to.
Okay. Well, we're going to talk a little bit, you were showing me earlier about your blades, how you make them, how they're laid out.
All my blades I forge, I start out with 2 to 3 inch round bars and forge that into billets, all low temperature forging, cannot burn carbon out of the steel. And once I forge it into billets, then I'll forge the blade to shape from the billet, and each blade individually. So they are forged to shape.
So you're starting with round stock then?
Round stock, yeah, 2 to 3 inch round bars.
Okay. So it's not like a Damascus where it's multiple folds, or is it?
No, it's not. It's just forging the steel in straight lines, trying to be consistent in the forging. And in the more forging, the more thermal cycles, you're refining the grain structure of the steel.
Okay. You've got a couple blades over to your right there. Kind of explain what those are and how they ended up looking that way.
Well, this is just an apple peeler or potato peeler. Yeah, everybody needs one of those.
There you go. That's high tech.
Now this one here I did about 6 years ago, and I try to make my blades to where they're extremely durable, they're not going to break in heavy use or in a dire emergency, and that they're going to hold an edge. So every blade, before I finish it into a finished knife, I test it to make sure that the edge is not going to be too brittle, and that it's also going to hold a good edge. So in order to do that, first I do what we call the brass rod test.
Okay.
And that is flexing the cutting edge over, I use a sharpening steel in a vise, and that's flexing that edge to make sure that it's not going to chip out in normal use. And drawing that cutting edge, pushing down on it the full length of the blade, and I like to do 6 to 8 edge flexes without any chipping.
Okay. Did you do that with every blade you make?
Every blade I do, yep. Every knife I make has been tested by the edge flex and then also cutting.
Okay.
So that I can be assured that whoever I sell that knife to, they're going to get the best use out of it. Okay. After I edge flex, then I sharpen the blade, and then I use a piece of hemp rope about the size of my little finger, and I just start cutting through that on a block of wood. Okay. And this blade here, I did 750 cuts on that piece of hemp rope, and it was still shave hair on my arm. So I then jigged it up in the vise, and with a torque wrench, I flexed it to 90 degrees, and it took 65 to 70 pounds of torque. The opposite direction, I flexed it all the way to 180, and it only took about 40 foot-pounds of torque. And in the grain structure of the steel, after I etch it, I can see the grain structure, and we have a carbide banding. And this blade was unique because on one side I have heavy banding, on the opposite side I had light banding. And when I was stretching that carbide banding, it took the 70 foot-pounds of torque. When I turned it around and went back the opposite way and compressing it, it only took the 45. So heat treating, the forging, everything, if I can get that carbide banding heavy on both sides, then I know that that's going to be a stronger blade. Ed Fowler, who I've learned from, he has called that a Woots-like pattern, which it looks like an old Woots blade, and Woots is what they strived for years ago. But the metallurgists, they say that is the carbide banding in the steel.
Just a little louder than
so anyway, I flexed this one to 90, went back 180 degrees, back 180 degrees. This blade did 6 180 degree flexes and didn't break or crack.
Yeah, pretty pronounced. Yeah, that's still razor sharp.
I tested last year. This blade, a friend's shop, Steve Kelly's shop up in Montana. And again, we did the cut testing. I did 600 cuts on the rope. We jigged it up, and it was at a hammer in, so there were several knife makers. And I actually wanted this blade to break so I could show them the different grain structures in the steel, because something I haven't mentioned is all my blades are differentially hardened. The cutting edge is harder. We've had those Rockwell tested, and they run about a 58 to a 60. And then as it transitions up into the spine, we get to about a 28 to 32 Rockwell. So, and that's why they will flex and not break. This blade flexed it to 90, went back 180. Like I said, I wanted it to break. I told everybody I figured it would break around 12 to 13, 180 degree flexes. I got to 13, it still hadn't broke. I went to 32, 180 degree flexes back and forth, and it hadn't broke, so I gave up. Another unique thing about that is it started to twist also. So I was not only flexing at a direct 90, it was twisting the cutting edge. And to me, that was just one more dimension that, oh well, it'll hold an edge, but it's not going to break. And it's still sharp, yeah. The blade does have a couple of small chips, but after we flexed it, I got to playing around, and I cut through a 16 penny nail with it, and also some hardened stainless steel. And the stainless steel is actually the one that causes small chips. But you can take this and tap it through a 16 penny nail, and it's not going to didn't mar the edge.
Wow. That's pretty impressive. That's interesting how the blades kind of work together. Now, when you fit your blade into the horn, you use horn as what you
Domestic
really like?
sheep horn is my primary handle material.
Okay. So you'll do just about anything when you got...
Well, not quite anything, but I've got a few woods that I like to use. This one here is a she oak. This one here is one of the first ones that I put she oak on. She oak comes from Australia, and it's a harder wood, but it's got a beautiful lacy pattern to it. My main thing is that it's still going to be a functional knife and durable. This one here, actually cousin Patrick, he wanted one with a she oak handle. I made this knife for him. Unfortunately, he's not here, so we'll ship it to him.
Okay.
Blade designs, mostly I've learned from Ed Fowler. You know, there should be a usable feature for why you're making your knives. And every edge on my knife is all rounded over to where it's comfortable using pressure. I like a long ricasso so you can choke up and utilize that blade for small tasks as well as large.
So these aren't decorative blades, these are working...
These are hard to use working blades, yeah. I guarantee them for my lifetime, so...
Okay. I know I personally had one for 2 years and several deer and a lot of things, and I haven't touched it with a stone, or actually you told me don't bother, send it to you if I need it sharpened.
And I'll sharpen them for free, yeah.
Yeah. So.
I make some smaller knives, neck knives. This one here, this blade works well for caping animals or people that want to just clean small game or use this. I also have designed this with the hole in it. You can tuck it down in the corner of your pocket, reach down in and pull it out. So okay. I'm not smart enough to make a folding pocket knife, so I make small ones that are usable for everyday carry.
Okay.
I don't use any jigs as far as making my blades. Most of mine I make in the style that Ed Fowler's developed that he calls the Pronghorn Hunter. I have branched out. I've had a lot of people tell me that, you know, they can look at one of my knives and one of Ed's knives side by side and they can see the differences. And that's just through different using of the knife, different ideas. I've developed one that I call a Buffalo Hunter. It's a much heavier blade, and I like it. It's more universal for skinning, dressing game, and just a little beefier blade for heavy use.
Now, is the big one is the same style as a pronghorn as well?
It's basically same blade shape, just larger,
okay.
A little heavier. This one here is almost 3/8 of an inch thick, okay. So you can chop trees down with that one.
Yeah. Very cool, Butch. Well, I appreciate you taking time to explain to us about some of the knives you make and how your materials better than some of the other guys. So,
thanks, Blake.
Thank you, sir.